of Helen Mary Fish, who wound up Helen Mary Ettinger. As you can see, I don't have a birth certificate, but I do have a baptism certificate. The daughter of Lynn Fish and Ruth Ryan, born on the 28th of January in 1925. You can see her sponsors were her grandfather and her grandmother, Ryan. This picture I have of Helen is when we went to country school together. And this one here is in 1931. And at that time, Helen was my girlfriend. Fact is, I was sweet on Helen in the first grade. So this is Helen in 1931 in District Number 10 School on the corner of Hackett and Stafford Road, down the road from her home. The picture of Helen. Now this is a picture of Helen. Supposedly she was 10 years of age. And with her is her brother Harold, 4 years of age. Now I'm quoting what's on the back of these pictures. So this is Helen and her brother Harold. She is 10 and Harold is 4 years old. Picture I have of Helen, she was in the 8th grade and she's right here in the middle. And it's hard to get a picture off of this old book. This is a yearbook, and that's Helen right in the middle, in the 8th grade. Now this is a picture of Helen when she graduated from Manchester High School in the same class I was in 1941. At that time, from our junior year on, Helen and I were really going steady together. We didn't go out with anybody else. We went every place together. We did everything together. This is Helen, a graduation picture. In 1941, in her cap and gown. Helen Fish. 1941, our graduating year. She was a very busy girl that year. This is a picture of her. She was salutatorian of her class of 1941. And she was involved, I believe, in everything in school. Yearbook staff. This is Helen on the yearbook staff of the class of 1941. Club. And this is a picture of Helen sitting next to Helen Craig in a press club. In the chorus, she was a lead singer in the chorus in any place she went. This is a picture of the commercial club. Okay, here is Helen in the commercial club. She made everything. Next to her on the right is John Brophy, on the left is Rita Boardman in the commercial club. The drama club. Okay, here is Helen again. And she's in the drama club. She didn't miss anything. She was in everything. I wasn't in anything. To the last one, the library club. And here again is Helen in the library club. She was in every single activity in that school in her senior year. She also had the advantage of, we went to classes. Our first class was English class in our senior year. And Helen very methodically did all her work. Smart student. And on the way to class, I copied her work every morning. It's a good thing she was around. She kept me going. Of Helen in your senior year. Helen and I were going together, and this is the year we graduated. I was up to the farm calling on her. Helen and I. She was young then. Her nickname was Buckfish. This is a picture looking down Stafford Road. This is little Roger and Helen. She took an awful lot of pictures of Roger, but I won't show them. I'll just keep on her. So this is Helen and Roger on Stafford Road. I think shortly after this picture was taken, this is when we graduated. We graduated in 1941. In the summer of 1941, we had quite an argument one afternoon, and I walked out. 1942, Helen and I, or almost a summer, Helen and I got back together just before Marion and Donnie's wedding. This is a picture of Helen and I at Marion and Donnie's wedding. Helen with her tall hat and her corsage, she was in the wedding. This is in 1942. In the fall of 1941, Helen went to RBI, Rochester Business Institute. And in the spring of 42, she was still going to school. And before she completed her course, she left school and Garlock's hired her as a private secretary to a Mr. Hamilton on the right, outside of Garlock's when she was working at Garlock's as a secretary. And this is a picture of her sidekick, Mary Larson, who moved to Florida. All the time they were working there, she rode back and forth with Mary. I think this is Ruth Kirchhoff in the middle, but I'm not sure. And that's Helen when she was single and working. She was working like her sons. She had a sense of humor. This is behind Garlock's. This would be in 1942 or 43. Picture of Helen with Mill, her sister Mill. Mill was older, but Helen was taller. I always told Helen she's the reason she's so big one in the Fish family, she probably was adopted. Of Helen on the left, Frank Driscoll and Ruthie. Helen always thought a lot of Frank. He was a nice guy. And that's Van Arsdale House, a little house in the background that Harriet and William Bullock wound up living in. As I said, there's Ruthie, Frank Driscoll, and then comes Helen on the left. Frank just come out of the Army. Helen in her single days. Type of picture that rascal would send to me while I was overseas. I used to call her Legs Fish. That's Helen. In 1944. Picture of Helen and I in the fall of 1944, when I had returned from overseas. I had my missions in, and I was home. This was the front lawn down at the farm. This is Helen in the fall of 1944. This is Helen and I again when I returned home. I was home on furlough. I come back from England. And Helen's front lawn. And I again with the Van Arsdale house in the background. And see, we were getting pretty serious. And we did a lot of horsing around. So on June 26th of 1945, Helen Mary Fish married Billy Ettinger on the Boca Raton Army Air Base in Boca Raton, Florida. With the best man. I just happened to ask him because he happened to be a Catholic. I never saw him before. Priest, Father Campbell, the Army chaplain who married us. Helen on her wedding day. 1945. These are the two people that stood up for us. The chaplain found her. She was a whack. And he was a sergeant. A slip above me in a bunk. And that's how we never saw him before. We never saw him again. This is myself, Helen, and Father Campbell. Bridegroom and bride at the wedding of the century. In Fort Lauderdale and found us this apartment. We were in the upstairs of this building in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And we stayed there until we got moved. That was our first housekeeping place we lived in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Then when I got transferred, we went to Lubbock, Texas. And this is a picture outside in the chicken coop, which we lived in. Wasn't very big. And the chickens all choked in a sandstorm, and that's why we happened to be in the chicken coop outside of our apartment in Lubbock, Texas. We were outside of town, outside of the country, out in the country. In Texas, we bought our first car. This was a 36 Ford Coupe, and somebody had put a 41 Mercury engine in it. And man, every time Helen stepped on the gas, she spun the tires. We kept this for quite a while. This picture was taken at my house because we come home on furlough with it once, went back, and then come back again from Texas. And that's when the speed limit was 35 miles an hour. I couldn't have got discharged early if I didn't have this car. Discharge, Helen and I moved home with my mother and father, and I went back to school and Helen set up housekeeping in this left side of the picture. In other words, the bedroom upstairs was our bedroom, and downstairs, the living room. My father put up a chimney, and we had a stove, and we ate with them. 26th of 1946, Bill Ettinger Jr. was born. This is a picture of Helen and Bill when Billy was 3 weeks old. We were living we were living in at the farm at this time. Now this is a picture of Helen, Billy Jr., and myself on Easter Sunday of 1946. That was Billy Jr.'s first Easter. And of course this is Helen and Billy in 1946. Bill, at 4 months old, with his bonnet on. Maybe that's what he needs today, is a bonnet on. Now on September 18th of 1947, Lynn Elizabeth Ettinger was born. And this is Mom and Lynn. And we were living in Bertha Bennett's house on State Street. Well, living in Bertha Bennett's, this is a picture of Bill getting ready for his politicking, which he was going to do later in life. And in the background is his Aunt Mill, and that's Billy Jr. standing on the sidewalk in State Street in front of Bertha Bennett's house. And of course, this is Lynn in front of our house, which we now live in. This is Helen with Billy Jr. and Lynn sitting on her lap. Of course, it's out in the country, and it looks like it's down to the farm. Billy, Helen, and Lynn. Picture at the same time of Helen and I, Billy Jr., and in the white outfit, it's hard to see Lynn on Helen's lap. Now here again is Helen with Lynn in front of her, Billy Jr., and myself. Now this is taken out at the farm, Lynn and Ruth's farm. Bill is smiling, of course. That's Helen and I in our younger days. Now in 1948, we were being told to move out of Bertha Bennett's house on State Street. Now Helen found out that the Randall house was for sale on Main Street. So Helen, she went, contacted Estelle Randall, and made a deal with her, and we bought this house that you see here in the picture for $3,200. This is one side view of it, and this is me standing on the front porch, a picture of it. As you can see, it hadn't been painted in 25 years. So Helen borrowed $500 from Mill for a down payment on it because we didn't have much. And when we moved February 1st, 1948, we moved into this house. In the month of January, I had worked enough on the inside so that we could move in. It had to have a new furnace, new coal furnace. The john had frozen and broken, and there was plaster sections down from most of the ceilings in every room. But Helen saw potential in it. She saw the circular stairway, and she saw a home for us, which meant a lot of work. But we did get the downstairs so we could move in February 1st of 1948. By a lot of hard work, planning, and what Helen liked and wanted to do we changed this house, and this one had the big front doors in it, to something as you see right now. Of it with the front door changed, glass on both sides of the front door. And a plant around front, but we don't have the flowers to show. And on a side porch that we had finally put screens and then enclosed with glass. Here the side view taken from Deanna's side of the house, of that house and what it has changed to be. As you can see, the side porch on the side and back that we put in. And she had flowers in the front then. And this was our house. Quite a few changes that girl made. To the house, she planted this Japanese, well, I guess it's an ornamental cherry tree. And it grew, and it grew, and it grew to the size to be quite a monster. But she loved it. Picture of Jillian standing in front of the tree. And in the spring, it is a beautiful color. That's Jill standing in front of it. Helen took a lot of pride in that tree, and she should. And the Christmases have passed. When it was smaller, we had lights on it, lit it up. It was very beautiful. To give you an idea of the work Helen put into her home, this is her mantle in the living room, set up for Christmas. As is she was a great candle lover. And this is part of an idea of the work she put in to make a home a home. Our front room with the plaster down originally, and to wind up as you see it here. She loved flowers, she had plants. This is the middle living room. This is the bay window area. Helen had a knack of doing things, and she could make something look very beautiful. As I said, she had a knack. This is their bay window area of her middle living room. Now this is her dining room. Helen loved to entertain. And when she was in Williamsburg once, she bought the light, the candle light. It was a pewter candle of candles. And she had it decorated for Christmas. And this is typical of what she would do in her dining room. She has the table set for a party. This is typical of Helen's entertainment. This is the way she would entertain. A wonderful cook. She enjoyed doing things like this. She enjoyed parties. She enjoyed having people here. This is Helen's dining room. Now about this time, Helen, She was very sociable. And at about this time, we became great friends of Marge and Ike Moses and Betty and Harry Huxley. And the three of them together were great friends. So this is Helen, Marge, and Betty Huxley. Picture of Helen, Marge, and Betty, and Harry's off to the side. We'd vacation quite often in the summer, and we went to Hay Bay on the other side of Lake Ontario in Canada. And this is the three ladies. They're probably up to no good. They're deciding something. Whatever it is, there's Helen, Marge, and there's Betty. The three girls. Those three ladies like to party and have a good time. And this is 1968. I'm not sure what the celebration was, but if someone bought a vacuum cleaner, we had a party. Anything. We'd all get together. We'd get together for supper. And this is Helen celebrating a little. She was good at that. She liked a good time. And with Betty Huxley. The three girls. As you can see, we're celebrating something. It didn't take much for us to celebrate. We'd celebrate anything. But Helen, she'd get on the phone, call them up, and the next thing you know, they'd all be here. During this period of time, Helen worked part-time in a post office. And her Uncle Andy was a postmaster, and Clara Smith was a clerk. Well, Clara got older, and Helen worked every day that Clara didn't want to work. And then when Clara retired, Helen took over the job completely. And so Helen had a steady job. And when it got down to the last times, when the post office was in its heyday, this is the people in the post office. Helen, Mr. Cornite did the cleaning up. He was retired. Millie Lush and John Specky Volpe. As we said, here's Helen in the post office. Mr. Cornite and Millie Lush and John Specky Volpe. They were quite a crew. And they knew how to have fun, and they knew how to raise the devil.